Welcome back. We continue talking with the Republican-endorsed candidates for office in the 4th Congressional District. And our next guest, running for the Minnesota House in District 42A, sorry about that, is Russ Bertch. Welcome, Russ.
Hi, Mitch.
Tell us a little something about yourself to kick things off here.
Well, Mitch, I'm originally from North Dakota. I grew up. You've got a little familiarity with some of the areas.
I could tell by the accent.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
That's
yes.
right.
And so, grew up in North Dakota, went to college at the university up there, and then moved down here. Been down here 30 years. Started in public accounting, and then I moved to accounting and industry with a company called Medtronic, which is a lot of people in the district are very familiar with. Yep. And then the last 20 years, I've been working in personal financial services with a company called Primerica. So I've been doing retirement plans and things like that with that company.
You seem like a fairly sensible person. What made you decide to up and run for office, Russ?
Well, I was starting to get a little frustrated with what I saw. I have two daughters, Mitch, and they're 17 and 13, and I'm looking at the world today, and it just doesn't seem like the same place that I remember a number of years ago. I mean, when I was growing up, everything seemed to make a lot of sense, and over the last few years, guess what? It just looks like things have kind of, what is right seems wrong, and what is wrong seems right, and it's something. It was a world I really didn't want my daughters to grow up in, and so when I started looking at things for them and for my potential grandkids someday, I said, you know what? How can I make some kind of an impact? And people were telling me, well, Dad, one of the ways you can do that is to get involved in politics, get up off the couch, and so back in 2010, I did. I ran for office. I learned a lot, gained a lot of experience. And so this time it seems even that much more appropriate.
So you've been doing a lot of door knocking, meeting people out and about 42A. What are you hearing from them? What are the challenges your district faces in this election?
Well, a lot of people in the district, I think, first of all, one of the things that I hear a lot of times is that people say, well, Russ, we want you to go down to the legislature and cooperate. And hey, I have no problem with working with people. I mean, I kid people sometimes that I was on a Roseville figure skating board. Okay, and boy, if you can learn how to work with a bunch of people with figure skating children and very emotional, young adults there, and then their moms, guess what? You can work with just about anybody. So I kind of pat myself on the back a little bit for doing that. But that was good experience for me. But one of the things so cooperation is very important. But a lot of people that are living in the district, guess what? Their house values are going down, and their property taxes are going up. And I say, you know what? One of the things that we need to do is we need to make sure that businesses are back in place in Minnesota, so that the tax capacity in these cities doesn't all get allocated to the residences. That it comes back to the commercial property. And until commercial property goes up in value, that's going to be out of whack for a while. So people are very concerned about paying the taxes, high property taxes on their households. Another thing that they're looking at too is I mentioned this in 2010, but I'll also say it again in 2012. This past year, as I've gone out in this past 3-4 months now that I've been hitting doors quite a bit, is you can go to doors now at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's people at home. There they are, and I think they'd want to be working.
Yeah.
And I think they're either underemployed, Mitch, or they don't have a job, or they're working out of their house trying to make ends meet, just doing something from their home. And a lot of people just don't have the jobs that they'd like to have right now.
So what do you do about that? If you're elected and you're representing 42A in the legislature, what can you do about jobs in the economy?
Well, I'm not going to say that I'm going to find a job for everybody, and I don't believe government creates jobs, Mitch.
Right.
Okay, one of the things that I look at is I say, government is not the place that should be expanding. I actually believe that the government footprint is way too large the way it is right now. However, one of the things that I look at is, and I'm in financial services. I've been self-employed for a number of years, and what's happened in that field is that there was an article in Star Tribune not too long ago that said there was 4,700 mortgage brokers in the state of Minnesota, and that number is down to less than 500. Well, what's happened is that they went out to try and capture a few people who weren't doing mortgages right, and what happened? They got everybody. And so what we need to do is we need to be sensible about the business regulations that we put on small businesses. So let's eliminate some of the small business regulations that are causing some problems like this and reduce the business activity. Let's open the free market a little bit more. And then also another thing too is that there's a statewide business property tax that's in place for a lot of businesses. And what that does is it puts us on an unequal footing with the states around us. North Dakota, which I'm from, which is of course having a tremendous economic boom. Iowa, Wisconsin, South Dakota, of course, has a different tax structure than Minnesota. some of those things we have to look at and be proactive on getting ourselves back on a level playing field with some of the states around us.
I think a lot of people don't understand the effect that regulations and these taxes have on business in Minnesota, because our unemployment rate still isn't catastrophic here in Minnesota, as high as it is compared to normal.
Right.
Yet it does have a terrible effect on small businesses and people trying to get small businesses started. And it's hard to explain to people who haven't tried to do that before.
Well, I think a lot of people are saying, why can't I get a job? I can't get a job with a big company or a small company or whatever the case is. And I ask people a lot of times, I say, well, put yourself in the position of a business owner. Just take it for an instance, okay? You be the CEO. If you didn't know what the regulations were, or that might be coming, if you didn't know what the medical costs were going to be, and if you didn't know what your tax structure was going to be after the first year, how many people would you, as a business owner, how many people would you hire? Most people give me the answer. Well, I wouldn't hire anybody right now because I don't know what's coming.
What's that, a trick question?
No, it's not. I mean, it's real
Right.
straightforward. It's real simple. Hey, take a look. Put yourself in a position of a business owner. Put yourself in a position of somebody who is not looking for work, but is somebody who's potentially looking to hire somebody for work. Much different situation for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, what distinguishes you, Russ Bertch, from your opponent? What makes you more suited, from the point of view of someone who doesn't follow politics perhaps all the time, maybe meeting you for the first time? What's your big selling point over your opponent in this race?
Well, one of the things is, and I look at myself, first of all, as a business person, as a person who comes in with, a limited political experience, and, people might say, well, that's a bad thing. But really, I think it's a good thing. I think we bring something to the table that is not necessarily part of politics right now. As a business owner, a person comes in and says, hey, I have some experiences that a lot of people who maybe just go through education, college, then they go to get a master's degree, and then they go into politics. I say, what experience is that? Everything that you have is academic related, okay? My experience says, hey, I have academic, experience, plus I have the business relationship that I come in and I can bring to the table and say, hey, this is where it's at, not just in the academic side, but also in the business side. So that's what I can bring to the table. Also, hey, I'm a hard worker. I've been working on a farm. I've been doing things since I was 10 years old, all right? And, there was always something to do on the farm, and if I couldn't find it, guess what? Somebody found it for me. So I feel like I'm well qualified to be a hard worker. I'm not really a good 8 to 5 employee. If somebody's looking for that, for an 8 to 5 guy, then I'm not your guy, all right? But I've heard that politics might have extended hours at certain times. Matter of fact, I've watched it a little bit. I'm not afraid of doing stuff like that.
So we've got about a minute and a half remaining, Russ Bertch. If you could pick out one goal, should you be elected to the Minnesota State House of Representatives, what would be your first big goal in office?
Well, a couple of the committees that I'd like to be part of. Some of the committees that work with budgeting, because I think and everybody says, well, there's no waste in government, or we've tried to eliminate a lot of that stuff over the last few years.
Right.
You know what? First of all, we have to live within the means of what we get as far as revenues in our state. We can't sit here and say, matter of fact, we shouldn't even be spending that. Okay, if we get revenues, wouldn't it be nice to have a savings or a surplus for a while? Mm-hmm. And then also, let's look first of all at where we're at fiscally, and then say, hey, if we could spend less than that, that would be fantastic. However, the other side of it would be, let's look at saying, what is our commerce area doing as far as our business regulations? That would be an area that I'd really want to be focused on and say, hey, if we could do that and eliminate some business regulations, whether it be in the finance area, the commerce area, or something like that, I believe that would be a tremendous step this year.
Briefly, Russ Bertch, what's your website and how can people help your campaign?
Well, here's the thing. You can go to www.russforhouse.com. Okay, you can contact me there personally. You can go to russ@russforhouse.com, or you can reach me at the following number, 651-294-9644. That's my phone number. I may not be able to get back to you right away because I am kind of busy with door knocking, but I'll promise I'll get back to you in the very near future and we can chat personally.
Russ Bertch, which I've been talking with Russ Bertch, who's running for the Minnesota House of Representatives in District 42A. Thanks for stopping by today. I hope to see you around about the campaign trail.
Yep, it sounds good, Mitch. Thank you very much.
We'll be right back.